to save the day.
All right. Jimmy O here. I'm going to let these gentlemen introduce themselves because they made a pretty cool little horror film called The Collector.
My name is Marcus Dunstan.
And I'm Patrick Melton.
Now, I got to say, I saw the trailer, and usually I see a film, and if it looks kind of torture porny, I'm kind of, no. This looked interesting. This looked really intriguing. Tell us about the film.
Well, what we wanted to do with this was take actually a character set from a thriller, because there hasn't been a thriller that genuinely thrilled in decades. Something that promised to scare you, like the way Marathon Man would have scared us, or the way Manhunter scared us, in that first time. And then we wanted to introduce those characters, layer them, develop them to the most vicious horror entity we could think of. And we've had some luck in the past with working in horror films, so we thought, all right, let's watch these two skill sets collide. And Mr. Bad is going to meet Mr. Worse, and they declare war. And there's some innocent members in the middle that you got to see the movie to find out what happens to them.
I mean, I'm not saying there's not violence and or torture involved, but it's supposed to be very organic, and so like we're not interested in gore for the sake of gore or gratuitous images just to do it. Everything needs to be organic and real, and so with this one, if something is being done to someone, it's for a very big purpose that has to do with the plot and this character's goals. So that makes this much more affecting, because you've seen really graphic movies before, and this becomes numbing after a while, and it's not as effective as it could be. So this one starts very slow, and when it gets bad, it gets bad. But it makes it much more affecting. And sort of the perfect horror movie in terms of releasing blood is The Shining, and it starts very slow, but by the end you have a river of blood coming down a hallway. So anyone who says that's not a bloody horror movie is crazy, because it's the bloodiest pint for pint. So that was sort of the template that we followed on this one. And then yes, the images you've seen are sort of the highlights, but a lot of that stuff comes later in the movie when we're turning up the heat quite a bit. So, but at its core, this is a thriller, and it is a thriller that horror movie rams right into, and there's a distinct moment that you'll know what I'm talking about, and you see in the trailer where this man who breaks into this house realizes that there's something else going on inside this house, and now he has to choose: am I going to help this family, or am I going to get out of here? So that's where the story begins.
I think there's really something terrifying about that. From what I gathered, the whole, the home is a safe place. It's a place where you feel, when someone comes into that and breaks that, that's kind of the most terrifying thing, and you're adding double onto that. What was there always a choice? Was that always in the script? How much did the script change from the original?
This was actually conceived as a short a long time ago. It was going to be a 10-page short, and the log line being, what if a thief broke into the home of a serial killer? So we developed that, wanting to make it, there was a broader canvas that it seemed to hint at. When we had the good fortune of having Feast made and whatnot, well, okay, 6 movies down the road, we now had enough at stake where we could take a shot. And Dimension let us make the film, and now Mickey Liddell, picked up the ball, and we're coming to theaters July 31st with that intention. So it's an idea that we've been polishing for the last 5 years, and wanting to protect these ideas and make sure that when the lights go down and when the sound comes up, we're shaking you from frame 1 to close.
And having with Marcus directing this one, usually we write the script and we hand it off to the director, and then it's what we see later is sometimes what we like, sometimes not what we like, but it's always just it's a surprise when we see that first cut. This one was very different, where it's everything that was in the script is in the movie, and so the final image that what we are projecting on July 31st is exactly what we intended to be, and it's the most fulfilling, I think, experience we've had, because it's exactly what we wanted, and it hits exactly where it's supposed to, and it's an intense movie, and it's just, I was sort of misty-eyed when I saw it for the first time. Like, it's finally come together, because it took a long time. We shot this before we shot Saw 5, and wow. And so it's been a battle. The original budget was it was 19 days in Shreveport, Louisiana for $3 million. We were done and we had 75% of a movie. So over the next year and a half, we were getting 2 days here, 3 days here, putting the movie together, and its end result is fantastic.
Now, I may be wrong on this, and if I am, I'll edit this out. You are involved in Cell 6, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
If we may brag on behalf of the director of Saw 6, anybody who has felt slighted by the previous installments, Saw 6 is here to point at the stands like Babe Ruth and hit it beyond. This is the only Saw movie I've seen 3 times. Yeah, Kevin Greuter kicked my ass. He's the director on this one.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm thrilled to report that because, man, I don't want to show up, and get the stares of terror from people that are like, "What'd you do to my franchise?" No, this one honors what has worked before.
6 was able to have something that the 2 others did, and that's a resolution. Because you had the first trilogy that Lee wrote, and then this is sort of our second trilogy, and so there is a nice feeling of closure at the end, where we understand where the second trilogy was leading to, and it ties into the first trilogy, so it all comes together in a nice little bow. Like John Kramer's Jigsaw's message at the end is completely understood, and his legacy is intact. There is something, of course, at the end that is going to segue into the next trilogy if they want to go that route, but there is a feeling of it all coming together, and sometimes the taglines are misleading that they use, like, on 5 it was "you won't believe the ending," but I think a lot of people did believe the ending. But for 6, it's but everything comes full circle, and it really does. And so it pays off in spades, and we're really proud of it because it's totally intense and it works really well. And
the performances this time, the acting is really like every single person brought their A game.
Yeah, that was a problem with part 5, and admittedly.
And a thing to speak to that is that, and this is partially our fault, I don't think there was a strong enough A story in part 5 concerning the people in the trap. We didn't really get a sense of who they were, and sort of like Julie Benz and Megan Good were sort of wasted to a certain extent because it's just, once the trap starts, I don't really need to know what your pet's name is, and so we started going, and we didn't really know anything about them, so we're not all that engaged in it. But for 6, we took that into account, and so there's a new character. His name's William, and he's played by Peter Outerbridge, and he's deeply involved with John Kramer in the past, and in a different manner than we're used to seeing. And so when his story plays out, we understand him completely and where he's coming from and what he has to do, and so when his story plays out, it parallels what we've known from the first 5 films, and it comes together in the end in a climactic moment of all these loose threads that we've had throughout coming together in this last moment. And I was watching the end of it, and I was like, shaken because it comes together so nicely, and it's so emotional, and it has that moment of resolution where you're like, yes, okay, I get it.
Okay, what's with all the people on the poster that?
What's that? Well, that's.
Well, they were showing a bit of that clip here, and that scene is really the most vicious they've ever let us go, and that's saying something, because there's actually a scene even in the beginning of the movie that I've seen it 3 times, but I haven't seen all that first scene because I've had to turn away myself. And I know when we wrote it, yeah, sure, you can write it, but when you see it and how well Kevin directed it, it pushes some buttons, man.
Insane, guys. Well, these guys got The Collectors, they've got Saw 6. What else you got coming?
Well, we just, I think we're going to start working on an adaptation of a graphic novel called Deal with the Devil. And that, man, has the best friggin' plot, and we're looking to shape that into what could be a really intense thriller.
It was written by Mike S. Miller, and it's this really good comic book series. It's a 5-book series. It's really good. It's a clever idea, and it falls within the same world of The Collector, where it's got thriller aspects, but it's got horror, and it's a horror movie. It's really intense and cool, and we're looking forward to getting to that.
And if I could, so we did show the movie last night, right?
Yes.
And I'm a biased critic, but I will tell you what happened after 5 minutes. A couple came. The man was chasing his girlfriend out of the theater, and she had these thick tears going down her face, and she went, I just can't. And we were in there, like mid-slurp of our drink going, what the F happened? Did they fall down? And then he turns to us and he was like, I'm sorry, she just scares, and she's like, I'm sorry, I can't. So please see The Collector, because some people can't stay through the opening credits, I guess,
It's the opening credits, people.